with it, Cheryl? Where is it?
Done with what?
The yogurt pot. What you done with it, Cheryl? Where is it? It's a Greek yogurt. What you done with it, Cheryl?
Hello everybody, and this is another celeb interview that I'm doing, and I'm doing an interview with the absolutely wonderfully gorgeous, great, fantastic person. You know her as Heather Trott and many other characters, but it's Cheryl Fergison. Cheryl, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you very much, Ken.
Jolly good. So, let's go. Can we talk about Eastenders?
We can. We can talk all Eastenders.
All Eastenders.
All day if you want about Eastenders.
Brilliant. How long were you in Enders for?
I was in there for shy of 3 months of 5 years, so I was nearly 5 years. And they only give you a party when you've been there for 5 years. So I wasn't going to get a party, but actually they all did a surprise one. All the cast and crew did one because Eastenders wasn't going to give me one.
Yeah.
But they went, 3 months off of 5 years, what rule is this? So they just basically did one, which was a nice surprise. But and Barbara Windsor came back to that because she'd left the show at that point, and so had Pam St Clements, who played Pat Butcher. Those two actresses had left by then, but they came back for the party, so I was really, really chuffed.
Oh, that's brilliant.
It was really,
brilliant.
Really good times.
I mean, you sort of developed Heather into an absolutely iconic character, though, didn't you?
Well, she was fun to play. I mean, when I first... Because I was in EastEnders 2 years previous, playing a different character. The rule is you can be in a soap or in EastEnders, you could be in EastEnders as a character, say a one-off, an episode or something like that, as somebody coming in for something, either in a hospital. In my case, I was visiting... Big Mo, she was visiting me in prison. I was her mate, and the reveal was that Kat Slater had come back and they found out that she was in prison. That was the scene. So I was in it 2 years previously, and then 2 years later, I got written in as Heather, so as a different character, which was very good, very nice.
What was it like, when you got that initial call of, right, we want you as... full-time Enders character?
Well, I left my trolley. I was in Asda's shopping and I got the call. And because in those days I used to put the crap stuff at the bottom of the trolley. All the pizzas, all the shit basically at the bottom of the trolley, and all the sort of vegetables and all the things that look healthy at the top of the trolley, so that people who would recognise me for other things I've been in would go, oh, there's that actress, oh, she is healthy. Little did they know what was underneath the trolley, the Arctic rolls and all that lot were underneath the trolley. So I got this the call in the middle of Asda's, and literally I legged it with my trolley was full. Freezer stuff, all sorts was there. Legged it out of the thing. They thought I'd done a runner, but obviously I didn't take the trolley, so I wasn't a robber. But left the thing and just ran home and got all the details and was like literally. And I'm sorry, Asda's, for leaving the shopping trolley in the middle there, dripping wet with defrosted foods. But it was an amazing day actually, because I'd been given a bit of bad news in the morning, and literally what was bad news, as in I'd been turned down of a job with Barry Humphries, touring Dame Edna Everage. I was going to be Barry's sidekick on a British tour, and I'd been doing workshop after workshop after workshop with all the people to get this job, and then literally that morning they said, oh, it was between you and somebody else, and he chose the other person. And I thought, oh God, that's pissed me off, to be quite honest. And then in the afternoon I got the call saying I got Enders, and initially it was only going to be 5 episodes, so I was just happy that I got the call for 5 episodes. But 5 episodes, nearly 5 years later, I was truly blessed to get that job.
You must have made a hell of an impact then within those 5 episodes for them to keep you on.
Well, I think they wanted to see a duo, and Heaven Shirley was certainly a duo, and I think they could see the potential of writing something with these chalk and cheese like friends. You know what I mean? She was like the hard note. Yeah, Linda Henry, who played Shirley, and I, we used to make our own backstory up. So we used to go to the writers and they'd say, well, how did Heaven Shirley meet? And what do you think this was about them? We would go back. We would go to the dressing room. We'd do a whole long thing about how we met, like years ago. we'd set, Linda said, okay, let's say that we met when we was at school. And I said, yeah, okay, that's good. And I go, yeah, like, I know, I was your friend, but I'd do everything for you. So like when you told me to do something, I would do it. So when you went to Chelsea Girl, I would go and nick the makeup for you. That's what, so we do that. And that's how it was developed, that she was like the leader of the gang, the gang of us. And I would be the one. But then, as it turned out, as they wrote it, we kind of became reliant on each other in the end, and it was a fantastic duo, to be quite honest. They had Enders at that time had really great duos, like Corrie did. You know, Corrie had Stan and Hilda, you know, and all of that lot. But there was Heaven Shell, there was Gary and Minty at that time. There was some really, you know, fantastic Grant and, you know, Phil and Grant. So, you know, they had some great duos. And I think that's what they sort of latched onto, that they could write for two women for a start, and you know, do it, that they were literally chalk and cheese. I mean, it was genius that they got me obsessed with people like George Michael, and it was genius that they made me love the 80s, because without them knowing it, I actually loved the 80s, and I loved George Michael, and I loved all of it. So I didn't have to play that far to know, you know, what they were asking me to sort of do, you know. You know, so
I think that's what's missing now with Enders is the comedy aspect. It's the same as Coronation Street. Coronation Street, you know, with Jack and Vera and all and Curly and Reg.
all of that.
They were a joy to watch. I think the only comedy character now, I think personally, in Enders is Tamika Epson. Tamika Epson. She's funny.
Yeah, she's very funny. And that's it. But she has nobody to play off of. She's only playing off herself.
Just herself. Yeah.
So I mean, she plays off of all the other characters in it, but it's kind of lost, because she could have a friend who was not similar to her, but the straight person to her funny person, which is what you kind of you get with everything, Eric and Ernie, you know, all of those lot. You know, there's a formula, and you kind of need to stick to it because it works. You know, don't break what's not fixed. You know, not what's not broke. Sorry.
So when you got the description of Heather, when they said we want you to play Heather like this?
No, they. I mean, I didn't know that they'd written it for me, which was the most amazing thing, because what had happened was that I went for the audition for Heather, thinking that I was going to go into a room with loads of other fat women, do you know what I mean, who looked like me, who was going to be sort of like up for this part. There was nobody else in the room, so I thought, oh, this is a bit odd. It was the end of the day, so I thought, okay, maybe everybody's gone. I had my piece ready to do to camera. There was somebody else reading it with me at a thing, and that was it. And then I thought, that's really odd. And then it wasn't until I got the job that I found out that the writers specifically asked if they could write it for me as a character for me, which I was blown away with, to be quite honest. And that was just from a few, you know, things they'd seen me in before. So that is that's a thing, one in a million, somebody writing a character for you. But they had the basics of Heather, I think, and then they asked me to fill her in. So things like the headbands were my fault. And actually, I say my fault. I mean, they became. I mean, you try wearing a headband, Ken, sort of 24/7, when they are tight around your head, you get a headache. You know, it's on your temples. You need like loads of paracetamol. It's a wonder I didn't flipping overdose, to be quite honest. But in the beginning, because they had these very hard headbands, and I made this backstory up. So they come in and they say, "Can you tell us a little bit about Heather?" So I say, "Yeah." When I said, "Right, okay," so when Heather was a child. And I've made this up even before they even introduced my mum into it, actually. I said, oh, she had a mum. I said, no, mum was really quite nasty character. I said, but when she was younger, I said her dad, who she absolutely adored, one day was there. She was wearing a headband, and Heather said, her dad said to her, "You look beautiful in that headband, darling. That's a lovely headband. You look beautiful." And then he'd gone, and he never came back. And this is what I told them this story, and they sort of like, and I kind of made this up in my head, and they went, okay. So he never. And I said, yeah. And from that day on, she wore headbands because she loved her dad. Couldn't understand why he never come back. Blamed herself, but also it was the last thing he said to her is, "Darling, you look lovely in these headbands." So she wore these headbands ever since. And they were like, "Oh, that's good." Later on in the series, they bought... you remember Mrs. Bouquet?
I do.
Okay, so Onslow's wife, Judy Cornwall, Daisy, played my mum in it. Judy Cornwall played my mum, and they played her as an evil, nasty, vile mother, which is what I'd already originally said. And this was ages, this was about 3 years into Heather. They brought her into it. They used the storyline. They said, "Oh, your dad left you," and she was going, "Oh, it's you why your dad left. It's this, that, and the other." So Heather always blamed herself for it. And the brilliant thing, and the thing that EastEnders didn't get, I was so angry at the time. Linda and I were really, really upset at the time, to be quite honest. We went to a party. My agent had a party in London. Not a party. We went to a Chicken Shed, which is a theatre group for people with special needs. And we went to there. He was a patron of it. My agent was. And when we got there, Bob Hoskins was there. And Bob was also a patron of this theatre company. And he was talking, and he said he loved watching EastEnders. And I said, "Oh, have you ever, have you ever had a part in EastEnders, Bob?" He went, No. He goes, no, He goes, "I don't know if I do a soap sort of thing." And I was like, "Okay." And Linda went, "Can you come in for a couple of episodes and play her dad? Like, would you do that?" And he went, "Well, I won't stay in it, but I could." We explained what the storyline was that I'd said to Enders years ago, and he went, "Yeah," because I think that would work. He goes, "I could come in for maybe like 5 or 6 episodes, maybe, and then leave again." He said they'd have to write it. He said, "That's a good idea." So we said, "Would you come in?" And he went, "Yeah." So we went the next day. Linda and I went to the story writers and to the people up above and said, "We went to a party last night, blah, blah, blah. Bob Hoskins wants to come in for 5 or 6 episodes to play Cheryl's dad." And they went, "Well, we've tried to get Bob in before." And they went, No. He wants to come in. He said he would do it. Speak to him. Let's arrange it. Speak to his agents. Your people talk to his people. And they didn't do it. And I was like gutted, absolutely. And then, of course, he passed away, so that was like just an opportunity completely missed.
Yeah,
but
really
that would have been really, really, really good, I think, to have had him play my dad. But iconic, because he was a fantastic actor. So,
yeah, that is rare.
Yeah.
So, did you do any comedy roles before Heather?
Always. That's all I ever did. I mean, I started out. I started out being one of Jeremy Beadle's prank jokester people on his Beadle's About show.
All right.
So the setup was in those days that Beadle's About would have 2 people from the general public, and a big prank would be set up, and we'd improvise all day this prank. So I was playing people like at the age of like 20, I was playing mothers of the brides. I could always age up, so I was playing mothers of the brides, and I mean there's classic ones where there was the photographer come to do everything for this wedding, and basically the cake went. She was photographing the cake, and then it obviously rigged to fall over, and she just like was completely, what do I do? She was trying to put it back together, and it wasn't, just a mess on the floor.
Yeah.
And I was coming in as the mother-in-law to sort of like, what's going on,
Yeah.
So we would do that's where I started. So there was kind of sort of bits of comedy where I was just improvising, because that's all I did at college.
Yeah.
I'd improvise and do things like that, and then got into Hello and things like that. So there was always comedy stuff that was there.
Stuff, yeah,
always nothing really straight at that point. Hale and Pace, I did stuff with them. So it was all sketches then that followed on with Little Britain and things like that. So at the same time, stage work. I was working with the Royal Shakespeare Company. I mean, you couldn't get any sort of sort of straighter than that, really. But so I've had a really blessed career. Met some flipping amazing people. Just literally, I can stand back and go, oh, I was in something with Sir Alec Guinness, the last thing he was in before he died. I was in something with him. I'm going in from somebody like him to Kenneth Connor. You got Barbara Windsor. There's classic people I have been blessed to have worked with or to have met. Al Pacino. I'm just like, is this real?
Yeah.
Is this real? You know, performed in front of the Queen. It's, you know, in my book I've got there's a great story in my book with me at Bob Lindsay, doing Cyrano de Bergerac in the West End, performance for the Queen. It's a hilarious story which I'm not going to tell you because if I'm going to let people buy the book, Ken,
absolutely,
do you know what I mean, to read it, but it's an hilarious story in there, and there's a picture of me and the Queen. It's like, and the expression on her face in there just says everything about what happened in that particular performance.
Yeah.
So, you know,
because your book, it really is a warts and all book, isn't it? There's no
it is.
bars.
Well, what's the point of doing an autobiography if you're going to smooth over the bad bits and the sad bits? I mean, everybody has a story. Everybody. Doesn't matter who you are, face on the telly, where we all have a story. You know, the person who's homeless on the street, they got a story. You know, everybody's got one. It's just a case of, can you tell it? How do you tell it? Who's going to help you tell it? Do you want it told, or do you want to keep it a secret? What do you want to do with your story? I thought there was a lot of things in my book that I had to process over a lot of years before I could talk about it. And I had to, it is literally, I'll describe it as, it is like, it's a roller coaster. We all know that analysis, but it's one with twists and turns, ups and downs, round and rounds. You feel sick sometimes, you're excited, you're happy, but you know what, you're down, but the ride goes up again and you're going to go up again. And that's what it's all about. Life is kind of like all of those things. And I think that that's what you've got to put in an autobiography. I don't like those autobiographies where they go, here's loads of pictures with me and loads of famous people. Because that's what you want to see, don't you? Well, I've got a few of those in there because that was obligatory to do. But also, those famous people in there were my mates, except for the Queen, of course. But you know, he wasn't in my phone book, you know. But
so your book's available in all bookshops?
Well, it's online. It's online, and I think on Waterstones you can order it and get it in the book, or some Waterstones you can. In Ireland, they're in the bookshops over there. I don't quite know why they're over there, but I think it's. I think they're seeing how it's doing, but at the moment it's doing really well. And I want people just to read it because there are things in there that everybody can relate to. People have been through stuff. I think they can relate to it, and whether they just think, my gosh, I'm not alone, or my gosh, I've been through that, or bloody hell, I didn't know that about her, you know, whatever it is. And then laugh at the same time. Have a laugh at some of the stories in there, you know.
I think when people do read the book and they realise that you have had a lot of ups and a lot of downs, but you've come out the other side, you've come out fighting, and you know, I think it could help a lot of people.
I say, like this glass, they say, well, you know, is your glass half full or half empty? And I say, do you know what, I'm lucky to have a flipping glass.
So, do you still get recognised as Heather?
Yeah. I mean, in the old days, it made me laugh because it was men in white vans who used to shout, Ev, in London, Ev, all right, Ev. And you go, all right. And they go, oh, I don't watch it, but my missus watches it. And I go, and then they proceed to tell me about the storyline. So I think, you're a little fibber, aren't you? You're sitting next to your wife pretending that you don't like watch it, but you're watching it out the corner of your eye because you know everything about what's happened. But up here, I mean, we are now 13 years later since Heather met the end. I live up north, and you know, let's say that, you know, we say there's no north and south divide, but the majority of people up here watch Corrie or Emmerdale. You know, they're going to watch that, and I wish I could get into one of those sorts too, because you know I could be like Roy's Rose, couldn't I? Be like something like that, or I'd like to be a killer. Actually, that would be quite good. One of those, like, but not, you know, in the soaps they always have a killer. Why are soaps becoming like they have to be an action film?
Well, I don't. I watch Enders now and again. I used to be a big fan of Coronation Street, but I like the classic Corrie. I like the old. I think
the one-liners, clever,
one of the
funny things.
The biggest storylines not so long back on Coronation Street was Percy Sugden had lost the keys to the community centre, and that was a whole episode.
You know, this is just what I was talking about. This, I said, like Frienders. I used to think they're talking about all a lot of the social issues that are in there now, and we know that everything has to be, represented by everyone has to be represented by everything. That's right. That's true. That's good. But in the old days, I loved EastEnders when Arthur stole the Christmas fund.
Yeah.
And that was his dilemma, and the whole community was thinking. And his whole his well-being in his head just went then. His whole kind of mind was blown, and that was the first time that you looked at, people going sort of having a downer and stuff, and you just couldn't you couldn't get your, it was the first time it was sort of spoken about, but then it was done through somebody stealing the Christmas fund, or somebody having to take the thing off the Vic, the thing you put money in, and you just think that's what is people's morals dilemmas were in those days. Now it's like what I don't know whether I should have brown bread, sourdough, what's better for me.
So were you real friends with George Michael?
Yes, I was. I mean, God, that was incredible. It came about because Heather was obsessed with George Michael. That was part of her character. Cheryl liked George Michael, Wham, always did, loved the music. And then the meeting of George Michael came because he always watched EastEnders. He'd been to the set before I'd come on it previously. He always watched it, always loved the programme. But then when Heather came on the scene, and George Michael was her number one, love of her life. He would send me cards and presents and things. I even named the writers named my child in it George Michael Trott, which I was Heather Trott. George Michael Trott. So my child was called George Michael Trott. He loved that. And then there was this storyline that happened. The writers wrote it over a real thing that happened. Linda Henry and I went to Cliff Paris's house, who played Minty. He lived in Highgate. We went there. Across the road from where Cliff's flat was George Michael's house, Stinger's house. There was a row of them in Highgate. And he told me this one day. He went, see that house over there? I said, yeah, that's Stinger's house. I went, oh, is it really? God, that's fascinating. He went, yeah, that one next door there, Cheryl, that's George Michael's. I went, are you joking? He went, no, because I see him come out sometimes. Before I could finish my tea, I was downstairs, ran across the road. They followed me, and I was just looking at his house. And then they said, come on, let's walk along. And I went, oh no, hold on, let me just look. It was these Georgian gates. And Linda, being Linda, the prankster she is, and them two being little mischievous meerkats. Basically, Linda pressed the buzzer of the flipping gates, and they ran off like knocked down ginger. I was stood there because I told you I ain't run since 1975. I wouldn't run. I was like, what did that? Took a bit of nod to what they do. This Georgian window sash went out. Two marigolds come out the window, and literally this woman leaned out and she went, yes, hello, can I help you? And I went, and just like a little naughty kid, I just went, sorry, is George there, please? I don't know what made me say it. Don't know. And she went, I'm sorry. And then she looked at me and she went, Heather Trott. And she ran down the stairs, came to the gate, and she went, I'm so sorry. She said, George is out at the moment. She said, oh, we're getting ready to do his tour. He's getting ready to tour around, do a world tour. And we're just getting all his things ready. And I went, oh, okay. She went, oh, I will tell him that you called. And I went, oh, okay, thank you. Sorry, sorry, Miss Person. Sorry to call. Them was seeing that I was talking to somebody. They were a bit intrigued. They walked back and said, what happened? And I said, well, and I told them. Linda and I then carried on to go to work, left Cliff at home. We went to work, got indoors, got into the EastEnders, and Ange, who was on the desk, who's the help desk lady, she went, oh, she said, you never guess what, because I've had a morning of it this morning. I've had somebody phone up to say this, and somebody phoned up to say, and then this bloke phoned up, Cheryl, and said, oh, can you tell Cheryl Fergison that he's sorry, that George Michael's sorry he wasn't there. I went, oh yes, I will, thank you very much. And I just thought, what a stalker, whoever this is. Yeah. And me and Linda were laughing, and then we said, no, Angie, it was actually George Michael. He phoned up to say sorry that I'd missed you. Yeah. And then that's how we got meeting. And then when I left EastEnders, he I'd just not got married to my second husband, and he invited us to go to the O2 to watch him do a concert. And yes, my husband couldn't go, and I went with a friend, and we went, and that's the first time I met George. And then after that, we just sort of became friends,
That's
how it kind of happened.
Brilliant.
But, yeah,
How interesting.
Yeah, it was good.
Well, I've got one final question.
Okay, I've been rabbiting, haven't it?
It's been an eye opener. It's been absolutely a really interesting interview. Have you kept any of Heather's headbands?
Yes, I have. I've given a few away to charities, auctioned a few off, and then I signed the inside of them. But I've kept special ones, like the one I got married to Minty, things like that. The special ones that mean something to me, I keep.
Yeah.
And there's also in my book, which I'm not going to tell you, Ken, again.
Okay.
They have to read it. There's something specific that I didn't take. I have to put my hand up. I didn't take it. Somebody else took it for me on the last day of my filming, and that kind of it hasn't blown up in my face, but it did have its repercussions. So you need to find out what that is.
Right. Okay. And I've got one more.
Yeah, go on.
Right? How pleased?
Just another one. And more. Just another one. And more. Just one more.
Jesus Christ, another one. How pleased were you when Steve McFadden got his well-deserved
35 years, Ken. 35 years, that guy.
What an actor.
But this is it, isn't it? It's like actor. You don't realise what you've got in front of you, and then suddenly you kind of. I mean, I knew it. I knew sort of from time. I've watched EastEnders from day one. I remember the first episode. I was a student, watched it, and I remember thinking, God, I'd love to be in something like that. I remember actually saying it to my mum at the time.
Yeah.
But
he deserves that.
More than.
What
I mean, he's
actor.
written the forward in my book. He's a very private man. I'm godmother to one of his kids. He's like my big brother in real life. We keep in touch like a couple of times a week. Sometimes, whatever. Whatever's there, we talk. He's written this beautiful forward in the beginning of my book. And he's a very private man, and he's not like Phil Mitchell.
No.
He's and that's why he's a brilliant actor. And he was so well deserved. I mean, I just don't know. I know why he hasn't got it before, because people take things for granted. But when suddenly you get storylines and you take them and you literally break them apart and you break them open, and you see what has been a hard man for a long time break down, that's when you go, oh my God. What I was talking about earlier, people go through life, they put on a mask, characters put on masks. They be this hard man, and something happens when they can't keep it in anymore in here, and they lose it. And it's a build-up of life, basically, that makes them, the boiling pot go, and you just go flip. And then when you see somebody be able to deliver that character so well, that's when you go, aha, now we get it. Let's show our appreciation now. But
brilliant.
Well deserved. I loved it that you got that. Well deserved.
I was well happy.
Yeah.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure. I could sit here and talk to you all day. Cheryl.
Thank you.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you for all the things you're doing. You're brilliant. You're very clever. And like I've said it before, your act is incredible. It's real. I mean, I've been put under by you, so to my sins. But and I think that don't poo-poo things that you don't know about. Really,
No.
Don't do it. Just there's a lot of people in the world that are not genuine with their jobs, but when they are, somebody like you, then go and see your act. It's funny, it's entertainment, but it's also very, very clever, because you know that it's coming from someone real. So
brilliant.
Crack on with your stuff. It's brilliant.
Thank you, Cheryl.
No, you're welcome.
Thank you very much indeed for your
You're
time.
welcome.
You're an absolute star. Thank you.